This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted to be joined by Kevin Barry, trainer of former WBO World Heavyweight Champion Joseph Parker. We're here at the lovely Team Barry Gym in Las Vegas. How you doing, Kev?
Rob, doing well. Doing well. It's great to have you here at our gym finally.
I know, it's been a long time coming. Thanks very much for inviting me down here today. As I said, it's a really lovely setup you've got here.
Yeah, we've been here now for a little over a year and a half, and it's very close to where I live, like literally 2 minutes down the road, and we have everything here that we need. You know, it's a great private facility for Joe and myself to work out in.
It's very, very nice. Last time I saw you was in New York not too long ago, but it seems like an awful lot has happened since then. The build up to the Anthony Joshua-Andy Ruiz fight, people were talking about what was going to come next. And what came next was Andy Ruiz upset Anthony Joshua. Just your thoughts on that incredible night at Madison Square Garden.
Well, you know, boxing is a crazy, funny business. And just when you think all the pieces are falling into place, they come crumbling down. And Anthony Joshua, you know, he wasn't himself. Definitely wasn't his best night at the office. Andy Ruiz had a great night and is now wearing all the belts except for the WBC belts, and good on him too. It's a guy that has worked really hard, has always been a top contender. I said before the fight that Andy Ruiz definitely belonged in everyone's top 10, and I wasn't just trying to sell a fight, I was meaning it. I knew the ability that he had, but just like everyone else, I was shocked and surprised in the fashion that the fight was ended.
I think that's something that Joe talked about. It was more the way Ruiz stopped Joshua that was surprising to everybody. Did you feel he was capable of producing a performance like that, particularly with regards to his punching power? It seemed like he hurt Joshua at regular intervals throughout the fight, which surprised a lot of people.
Well, I think that it changed from the very first time that Joshua actually hit the canvas. Before that, he had landed a really nice right uppercut left hook to put Andy down, which I believe was the first time in his career he'd been off his feet. I know that Joshua and his team would love a redo. He ran in recklessly with no respect for the power of Andy Ruiz, and he stood there and swung and traded with them, and they both threw down. And Andy's punch hit the target better, and he hit him on the top of the head, and Joshua just simply never recovered. It was widely reported that he was concussed since that moment, and he looked like it in the rounds following. He just did not look himself.
Reminds me a little bit of when Joseph Parker boxed Dillian Whyte, when they had the head clash that, as I spoke to you after the fight, that concussed Joseph for the rest of the fight. How difficult is it for a fighter to recover from something like that in the middle of a fight?
Well, look, let's remember in the Dillian Whyte fight when Joseph Parker was in total control and Dillian Whyte hit him with a headbutt to the cerebellum right behind the ear, everyone just played it down. Not only did the referee not call it and score, and the judges scored the round a 10-8 for Whyte instead of 10-9 for Joseph Parker, but they all played it down afterwards. And they went, oh no, these things happen in boxing. And yet when Anthony Joshua was hit high on the head with a left hook by Andy Ruiz, he was concussed for the rest of the fight. Let's remember, Joseph Parker was concussed, but he fought on. He fought with a warrior's heart. And even though things weren't going good for him, he had no control over no judge of the distance in the fight, was standing in the pocket thinking he was in a safe position in the Whyte fight, only to be getting hit by punches that he shouldn't be getting hit with, but he stuck in there because he had the heart of a champion, and right up to the last round when he fought back and had Whyte gone, had him on the ground. So, you know, that does have a huge bearing on the fight.
Anthony Joshua, it was a big surprise to a lot of people, not only the result, but his performance, even before the knockdowns in the third round, that great third round. I spoke to, I can't remember who it was after the fight, and they mentioned that every heavyweight in the world will be fancying the Anthony Joshua fight now based on that performance. Can you see that from a trainer's perspective?
No, obviously a lot of people will be brave now. and they'll think that is the blueprint. But let's remember, there hasn't been too many guys in 21 fights against Anthony Joshua who have been able to do that, and he's fought some very high level opposition. Right back to his previous fight against Povetkin, who was a very good fighter, who was able to, land a few good punches in the early rounds. I think them saying that other fighters, if they fight like Andy Ruiz, can beat Anthony Joshua. I think it doesn't give Andy Ruiz the credit that he deserves. He's the one that went out there when he was hurt, was able to let his hands go, and he turned what was looking like a bad situation by letting his hands go. He turned it into a good situation. And there's not too many fighters out there that can do that.
A lot of the talk when such a high-profile loss or upset happens, a lot of fingers get pointed. Now, we've heard an awful lot of stories about potential sparring injuries, which are impossible to confirm unless you're actually there. One of the things that has come out recently, and I know this is something that I'm expecting you to have a very strong opinion on, is criticism of Rob McCracken. It reminds me of similar criticism that you received after the Dillian Whyte fight. What are your thoughts on that? People suggesting that potentially Anthony Joshua needs to leave Rob McCracken, or criticism of the relationship between the two. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'll tell you what, people making those statements not only disrespect the trainer, but they disrespect the fighter. Robert McCracken has been pivotal in getting Joshua to where he is today. He worked with him for many years in the amateurs. He's worked with him for all his professional fights. I listened closely as a trainer to the comments by both trainers during the rounds, and I thought Robert McCracken's advice to Anthony Joshua was spot on. He came back after the third round when he had Ruiz down, then he got careless and reckless and ran in and found himself on the canvas a couple of times. McCracken settled him down. He said, "You're okay, a couple of big breaths." He said, "Get out there and get in behind your jab from the outside, keep him honest by throwing those long right hands so he doesn't close the distance." In the fifth round, he once again employed him, work your jab, work your double jab. And I think in the sixth round, coming into the seventh, he said, don't engage with them. Throw the 1-1-2 from the outside. And one thing I found very curious was that 3 times in 3 separate rounds, Joshua sat there and asked McCracken, "What punch did he hit me with?" And Robert McCracken answered him every time. He said, "Look, he caught you with a left hook." And then it was 2 rounds later, "What punch did he hit me with?" So obviously there were telltale signs then that he wasn't clearing.
Also, a lot of talk since the fight about potential rematch. What are your thoughts on a rematch? A lot of people see the political situation in the heavyweight division and see that as probably one of the big deciding factors in taking the rematch. Would you advise Anthony Joshua from a coach's point of view, from a trainer's perspective, to take that rematch against Andy Ruiz?
Well, look, I wasn't close enough. When I say close enough, I sat in the second row. But I wasn't in the dressing room before or after the fight. I also was unaware. I know there were the rumours of being knocked out in sparring. But let me tell you this, he has such a professional team with him, Anthony Joshua. If he was knocked out in sparring, he would not have been fighting that night at Madison Square Garden. And then people talked about a panic attack. Well, let me tell you this, if he had a panic attack, the New York Boxing Commission is one of the strongest in the world. There is no way they would have let him walk to the ring. So, you have to look at all the factors. You have to look at, did the fact that he wasn't training at home, did that have an effect on him? He was obviously out of his comfort zone, because at home in the UK, he has the perfect setup. He has a high degree of comfort there. As far as himself, picking himself up when his confidence is right down, only the closest people to him and Anthony Joshua himself will know if he's able to put this away and move on from it. One thing I can tell you is that the first 2 or 3 rounds in the rematch are going to be very, very exciting rounds. And we all know Andy Ruiz is not going to come out jabbing. He's going to come out with guns blazing. because he thinks he has the measure of the man. But, you know, as I mentioned before, Joshua has a very professional team. I'm sure that they'll look at the things that he did wrong, they'll correct them, and time will tell whether or not it will be good enough in a rematch.
Just staying with that final question on Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz, if the rematch is indeed to happen next, who would, if you had $1 left, who would you put it on?
Oh gosh, you're really putting me under the hammer here.
His last one.
Well, I tell you what, the really good fighters have been able to correct their mistakes. And I don't think you get to become an Olympic gold medalist and a 3-belt world heavyweight champion unless you are a really good fighter. And you know, I would think that if Joshua fights to his strengths, he could definitely turn the result around in the rematch.
Okay, well, Kevin Barry, thanks very much for having me down here to the gym today. Now I'm going to watch you do a little bit of training. Well, not you, Joe. I'm sure you can still do a little bit as well. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. As always, real pleasure.
All right, Rob, my pleasure too, my friend.